Hello, and thanks for joining us for another Five Things podcast. I'm here with a guy that I've been watching on TV for a long time. Nick Kalikas, thanks for joining me today.
Pleasure to be here, man. It's an honor.
And it's really cool to actually be sitting here with you. Now, full disclosure, we met about little over a year ago, and I was waiting for O'Day Osborne at the time, was just kind of budding friendship a little over a year ago. And I'm in Aria, and I'm standing out there waiting, and all of a sudden I look and I see you walk, and I'm like, son of a bitch, that's Nick Kalikas. So do you remember that by chance?
I do remember that, yes, very well.
Yeah, so do you get that a lot more being here in Vegas now, I'm guessing?
I mean, not too often, of course. I think I'm one of the UFC employees that are like less recognized compared to like Yanni the Greek. He's more of a personality, so to speak, out there. So I think he's more widely recognized than I am. So I mean, it happens from time to time, but it's more the diehards that recognize me than it would be like the general, fan that's tuning in.
Yeah. So I would imagine because you're on the line now as well, which is awesome. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
Great addition to the show. But I would imagine the notoriety is growing as you're on both the gambler's perspective and on the line.
UFC
now.
on the line, yeah. I mean, the UFC on the line I've been on for a few years now, and it's great. It's only gaining momentum. It's getting better. We've added some pieces to it, like Minty Betts came on, not too long ago with us as well. They've tried some new things with the show, and I know now with this Paramount deal, I'm not sure exactly how, it's going to work out. We're obviously on UFC Fight Pass still right now, but there's a chance we could get, hopefully on a bigger stage as well.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome. So, sorry, I just jumped right into it. I'll give you a little intro. You're from Ohio originally. You're a father. You're a husband. You've trained in martial arts since you're 3. Is that right?
Yes, my dad was a black belt.
All right.
When I started training martial arts.
So you're yourself a 3-degree black belt?
Yes.
Which is cool. I never, I never would have thought that, but obviously doing a little research here. Taekwondo and huge Ohio fan. Ohio everything, right?
Yes, 100%.
And I already mentioned the shows, but tell us. So you're growing up in Ohio. Tell us about your, tell us about your childhood, Nick.
Well, I mean, both of my parents are Greek, 100% Greek.
Okay.
So we were here. They immigrated to the United States, and my brother and I have one brother, so it was a small family. We both got into the martial arts growing up. I mean, it was more. The sports in my family, soccer was popular in Greece, so you were allowed to play a little bit of soccer.
Yeah.
But outside of the box, like outside of that, there was no basketball too much. And my brother did experiment in basketball, explore basketball opportunities when he got a little bit older. But growing up in our younger age, it was like martial arts or nothing kind of for us, which was cool because my dad actually, he signed up originally to quit smoking cigarettes. So he did it not to learn how to be a fighter. He did it for health reasons. He was smoking 3 or 4 packs a day, which was very common back then.
Yeah,
they didn't realize how bad,
Sure.
So he did it more as an exercise thing, and he liked it. And, my brother and I kind of grew up around it a little bit. He was training us in the basement, and then we officially started training in a school when we were about 5 or 6 years old. My brother's 3 years older, so he got to start first a little bit into that. And, of course, I'm getting a phone call as we speak. Apologies. So, and then again, that kind of, the passion for martial arts started at that time. And it was my dad kind of drilling it in us. And we started competing in tournaments. And when I was around 15 years old, we actually opened a martial arts school academy. My instructor passed away, unfortunately, when I was around 11 years old. So I explored other opportunities and that's where I got out of the Taekwondo, strictly traditional Taekwondo end, and explored sport karate, which kind of led to like Kung Fu stylists, kickboxers, a little bit of everything. There was traditional karate people involved. So we explored the sport karate scene. And that's kind of what our background was, actually. We were martial arts, Taekwondo, sport karate fighters.
I think that's such a great thing for a young man to learn growing up, or a woman, really. But learning martial arts, I really wish that I raised my kids in the 90s, and I was totally broke, so I didn't really have the money or the time anyway. But I think it's such a good foundational thing to have your kids in martial arts. How do you agree with that? Or?
I 100% agree.
Yeah.
And again, it's not to be a tough guy. It's the exercise. There's a lot of benefits that go with it. For us, it was competing in martial arts tournaments. It honestly kept me out of trouble because I had goals set, right? I wanted to win these certain tournaments, these certain championships. And then on top of that, I got an opportunity to try out for the USA karate team as well. So I made the USA team. So I was a USA team member, and that was a big dream and goal of mine as well.
That's awesome, yeah.
I wanted to make the Olympics one day. Unfortunately, the sport karate people aren't in the Olympics. It was all traditional Taekwondo. And again, I actually prefer like the sport karate style because it mixes in hands more so than feet. Because Taekwondo is kick, 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 kick.
Okay.
Sport karate is a little bit, I'll hit you with my hands as well. It's more 50-50. You'll see hand techniques and, with the kicking that goes along with it. So I do prefer still to this day. Taekwondo has a lot of great attributes with it, but again, I think the sport karate is a little bit transforms you into a better overall, fighter. I think, when you're able to use those hands and feet more like the MMA, UFC fighters, and that's kind of where the stand-up striking has evolved a lot with different styles of striking coming into play, not just Taekwondo, not just karate. So that's kind of what I fell in love with. And that's where what got us, actually led me into sports betting. I'm sure we'll get into that later on, but it's kind of a weird coincidence that it got me to where I am today.
Yeah, so you were doing competition until your early 20s, is that?
Until my early 20s, yes.
Okay.
And it came to a point, honestly, especially back then, MMA wasn't ultra popular.
Sure.
Jiu-jitsu started to become a thing.
You mind me asking your age?
I am 48.
48, okay. I'm 51, so we're operating right around the same time frame.
Yes, sir. I started late with the family. I got a 14-year-old, a 12-year-old. Well, no, 11 and 10. They just had birthdays, all of them. So
I think you did it right. I did it way too early. But anyway, so early 20s, you're working on competing and.
Yeah, I mean, I already accomplished quite a bit up to that point, and we were spending money traveling to tournaments. It's not a cheap sport. You're going to state to state. You're spending money in hotels, tournament registration fees. And at that time, again, you're not making a lot of money. Maybe you won grand champion, you won $100. Well, you spent more that weekend than $100. So it became a point where, I wanted to make money instead of constantly spending. So everything that we were bringing in, we would spend. So we weren't profiting that much. My dad said, go become a barber. He was a barber. That was his livelihood. And I was like, man, I'm not going to become a barber. But you know what? The truth is, after a while, I was like, I need to make some money. I'll give it a shot. If I don't like it, I won't do it. I started cutting hair. I went to barber school, started cutting hair a little bit. I enjoyed it. It wasn't bad. And it blended in perfect with the karate school as well. So I had steady income coming in, different type of income revenue stream in the daytime with the barbershop. And then I taught my classes at night as we were going through that phase. So I got an opportunity though along the way to go offshore to Costa Rica. And it became a reality because of a sport karate show that we started way back when the internet wasn't even really, it just started, back in the late 90s, the internet actually came in play.
I know it's hard for a lot of people to imagine, but it was like the internet was not that big a deal. It was, sending an email was, I remember the first email I ever sent. It's like, this is kind of cool. But,
100%.
So thinking about a show was very forward thinking back then, actually.
Yeah, it was amazing because it was a radio station. My brother was listening to a sports talk radio station. We're big sports fans, and across the board now, especially these days. I mean, we love all sports. It's not just martial arts. So he was a big sports fan, listening to an AM, sports radio station one day, and I think he called in, and after the fact, the producer, somebody got information from him. They started a conversation. And they got our background a little bit. And at that time, they started a website, like a web page that had a couple shows. They had like a WWE wrestling show on there, and they wanted to bring a martial arts show to go along with it because they like the fighting aspects of things. So they actually started a web page, and we went into a studio similar to this that had video cameras on us, and we started podcasting. And at that time, I think there was Sherdog Radio was around, the original Sherdog Radio, and MMA Weekly radio was, but so there wasn't many people that were doing the podcast.
Big financial commitment back then too. It's not like you could just have your cell phone,
Right. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So it was, thank God it was like, we used to drive to Cleveland. I'm from Canton, Ohio originally, the Football Hall of Fame.
Okay.
So Cleveland is about an hour away, 45 minutes to an hour away from us. So there's this radio station in Cleveland, and they had the studio already set up. So it didn't cost us a penny. In fact, I think I earned like $25 a show or something like that, small to do the to do that at that time. But it was fun. We started exploring, we started digging into martial arts a little bit more outside of the sport karate element because it started as a sport karate show. But my brother got into the more MMA stuff because he was more the producer of that show. I was doing a few other things with the barbershop, with the karate school. He had a little bit more time on his hands at that time. So he dug in, underground MMA forum, underground.tv, historically, it's one of the best forums.
So are we talking like late 90s right now?
Yes.
Okay.
We're talking late 90s.
Okay.
And at that point, UFC was kind of underground. It was illegal in many states.
Sure.
But my brother tapped into the UFC forums, and he was like, man, this thing's awesome. You should see all the love. It's still, because we used to watch, even from UFC 1, we were fight fans. So being a martial artist, competing in tournaments, whatever the case may be, I used to love to come home, turn on the TV. Back then, you'd see CBS had kickboxing on, for crying out loud, So every fight, every style of fighting we can absorb, we loved it. And so we were big time UFC fans even before, everything kind of took place. But I was actually more of a K1 fan. Because K1 back then, the K1 Grand Prix was off the charts. It was amazing. You have the best strikers in the world were part of K1, the Grand Prix. So I remember watching all of that. And so that was kind of where my heart was more so than my brother. My brother was like, no, MMA is where it's at. And I was like, striking's where it's at. K1's where it's at. So he started bringing, little by little, we started bringing MMA fighters on our show. So it was, again, a kind of ahead of the curve podcast. And I enjoyed it. But again, he was more ahead of the curve with that. And before you know it, of course, it evolved into, I mean, MMA and UFC is amazing these days. So we're kind of a little bit ahead of the curve. But it all started with a sport karate show, believe it or not. And then an offshore sportsbook was listening. I don't know how they ended up finding that webpage or whatever the case is, especially way back then. But a sportsbook offshore was listening, and they sent an email to the radio station about a sponsorship opportunity. And they asked us if, maybe we fly a couple of you guys down to Costa Rica. We wine you, dine you a little bit, and talk some business. So that's what we did. My brother was married, had a young child. I was a single guy at that point. So I was like, you know what? I'll go to Costa Rica. We had to decide which one of us
twist your arm.
Yeah, exactly. So
from Ohio to Costa Rica, twist your arm, right?
Yeah, I mean, we just went to check it out at first, and I went with the guy that owned the website part of that radio station as well, the president of that. So him and I went, and once we landed, it was basically they were just trying to recruit me to stay. They were like, you know what if we offer you this, this, and this to stay in Costa Rica? And I was like, man, it's cool, but Costa Rica, I'm going to move my life to Costa Rica. I had my karate school going. I had the barbershop going. I just bought a house.
And you're still young 20s here, right?
Yeah, early 20s as well. So
it's a big uproot.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And I turned it down originally. I was like, man, no, thank you. It's kind of like, it was a scary situation for sure, being so young. But then I went back to Ohio. I thought about it a little bit, like 6 months into, doing everything. I was like, man, if I'm ever going to try to take anything, like a drastic turn in my life, this is it. Like if I'm ever going to try to do anything different, maybe this is the calling. So I called the sportsbook back and I said, hey, if this opportunity still exists, I might consider it. So we set everything up, and I ended up in Costa Rica, and I ended up living there for about a decade, believe it or not. But again, there was that we could do probably a whole show on my time in Costa Rica, believe it or not. So that was quite a ride, but that's how I ended up in Costa Rica. And that's how I started working with the offshore sports books and making UFC betting lines, was in Costa Rica.
Because they were basically bringing you in to help set the odds for fights, right?
Yes.
They're trying to get action on the fights.
Yeah, at that time, there was a few sports books offshore that set a couple lines here and there, but they would get buried. So they would only put maybe a title fight up for the UFC. And again, it wasn't a very good line. They would get destroyed. So they would try not to put it up as often.
Sure.
So they were looking at me like maybe this guy could dig into it and, start expanding on the lines offering so we could get more customers in the door for combat sports. So the place that originally hired me, they had boxing lines already available for some of the bigger boxing matches. They wanted to get into other combat sports, such as K1, such as UFC. So they were like, hey, I had no clue how to set a line. I had no idea. I mean, I knew sports betting a little bit, just the casual sports bettor, being on your couch at home watching NFL Sunday, whatever the case may be. So again, there was the learning curve for sure when I first got down there. And you didn't have much footage. You didn't have YouTube as obviously, now everything's widely available. You have so much areas and different stuff you could research. Back then it was like, honestly, going to the forums, trying to study as much as you can and get as much knowledge as you can from the web pages, like a Share Dog, like the MMA Underground. And there are a lot of various different websites like that we were going to.
It kind of reminds me of when I was talking to Cub Swanson. He was like, when I started in MMA, like you had to go buy this video because the jiu-jitsu guys, they weren't sharing their secrets, but you had to like try to hunt down this information. You didn't have the internet, but it's just wild. I'm sure for younger people, they just can't even imagine how, like
no way.
You had to buy a map to go places. Like it was a different world. So you're trying to learn this on the fly with very little data, basically.
100%. And I was getting crushed too at the beginning. There's no doubt about it. I mean, it was scary.
Yeah, I bet. And I'm sure it was frustrating for everybody learning along the way. But what was the goal back then? Like, were you trying to you couldn't find stuff on the internet? Were they trying to get you film on people? And
no. I mean, it was basically like, here, this is what we want you to do. Good luck. And they were like, do your thing. So I had to figure everything out myself. And again, I just started studying. I got online, I started doing a lot of research, started making connections with different promoters from different places, different fighters from different places, because again, the forums were kind of our tool for like social media now these days. It was kind of more of those forums. So I reached out. There was actually one group in England, Cage Warriors, right? They're widely popular right now. That was one of the first places I ever set lines on, was actually Cage Warriors. Ian Dean, who's very much still a part of that company, is a good friend of mine. It's been years since we were as close as we once were, but at the same time, he's been just a legendary figure, I think, in UK martial arts in general, MMA. So I reached out to him. We started talking a little bit. We started making lines on Cage Warriors along with the UFC. So it wasn't just the UFC lines. I took the UFC and started making main card lines. So from one fight, I ended up expanding it to like 5 fights for the main card, for example, right? Whatever it was. Back then, it could have been even maybe 4 fights, whatever. And it was more of a marketing ploy for the sports books. Again, they just wanted these customers to come in the door, say, oh, look, this book offers something that these other books don't offer.
Right.
Let's post up.
Give these gamblers anything to gamble on.
Yes.
I've got a friend of mine that'll have $5,000 on some random, basketball game in Japan or something, or table tennis. I mean, it's crazy what people are betting on because they're just bored and they're degenerates sometimes.
100%. Yeah. So that's exactly what they wanted. They knew coming in the door, they would bet on other stuff.
Right.
So even if we're getting crushed in this part, their money would probably go elsewhere.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it makes sense. If you had to take a guess, everybody's sports betting. What percentage of people would you say are actually making money, like methodically going about it as a business?
I mean, methodically going about it as a business and making money.
And profitable.
And profitable. It's less than 1%. I mean, 1% was.
That's what I would think.
Yeah, it is. And that's crazy if you think about it. I mean, 1% of, but it's true.
Yeah.
I mean, it's that rare to grind out profits every year. And again, a lot of these sharp bettors that have analytics available now for other sports and they have this, they can win. They do grind out profits. But again, you see sharp bettors that have losing months, not just month. Yeah. Months. They go through a dip and it feels like, you're never going to win again. But then by the end of the year, all that stuff levels out and they manage to grind out a little profit.
That's how I've always looked at it. Now, again, I've sports bet for probably 20 years, but I've never paid attention to, it's kind of entertainment for me. But I've always thought to myself that I feel like I could do this if I really put my mind into it. But again, you're tracking bet sizing, you're tracking units. Like you really got to be very disciplined. I'm not betting because I'm bored and I want to throw $50 on a game.
Correct.
That's kind of the process. I think that just most people don't have the discipline to go about it.
No, and again, what you just said, most people are betting like $50 on a game because they're bored, whatever the case is. But again, that's what these companies want. They don't want the guys that have any knowledge. They want a bunch of those guys.
Yeah, and it's fun when you win, and it sucks when you lose. But so ultimately, you're down in Costa Rica. You're finding your way. You're developing. You're on the tip of the spear, so to speak, in the sports betting MMA world. So how long are you in Costa Rica? You said a decade?
A decade, yes.
Okay.
And you know what? Honestly, within the first 6 months or so, I could have easily went back to Ohio. I mean, it was going miserable. It was going really bad to the point where the original company I went with, things weren't as it seemed. I mean, the deal that they structured for me wasn't exactly what they said it was. So I kind of had to stick my neck out and just go looking around for a different place.
Another opportunity.
So
get away from your roommates.
Yes, well, there was actually, I was told originally, okay, we're going to pay you this salary.
Right.
We're going to get you this nice house.
Right.
They didn't tell me I was going to have 3 other roommates. So there was 4 of us in here that were big time partying. It was like, you wouldn't believe. I mean, it was like, they were like rock stars over there. So it was interesting for sure. But not just that, just like a lot of backstabbing early on went on. Again, because it was kind of the wild, wild west early on. So, things were said, but other stuff was done. So, like I said, I had to find my way for sure.
So you end up finding a better fit.
I did.
In Costa Rica, yeah.
And I got lucky because I landed at, one of the best places that you can kind of work at that point. And things, they gave me the opportunity and things were going bad because it was like my ex-employer, believe it or not, was trying to get me fired for my new gig because they didn't want me to go to this other place. So what they were doing was trying to, as soon as I opened a line, again, I was originating the markets, period. There was nobody else coming out ahead of me as far as the UFC early on. There was, so I was it. I was making the lines and people were basically copying it. After the lines was set, everybody, Vegas would start copying. I'd see guys at Vegas, saying, oh, we just opened these lines and they got them from offshore. They got them from Costa Rica. That went on for so long. People had no clue where the lines were actually originating from a lot of times. So with all that being said, it was one of those things where they let me do my thing. And within the first year, though, again, those people were coming in just willing to dump a lot of money on my lines. So I'd open a line and they would call up. There were so many call centers back. It wasn't all online. They were trying to push online. They started getting people to the websites, but more so than anything back then, I mean, you would see a call center full of clerks just picking up phones and answering, So these guys would get on the VIP line because they were betting so big that you'd have like the front row would be for VIP clerks. And that was all the heavy hitters. Well, these other sportsbook owners, of course, would be picked up by the VIP. So they would be calling it as soon as I'd open my line. I put it out there. They'd be calling in and they'd say, okay, what's the line? Okay, that's a terrible number. They would even, they would make fun of my line. They would mock it. And they would put, at that time, we didn't even control the limits. This is how young and naive and everything. Because there wasn't a separate setting for combat sports. So we had to use like NBA, for example.
Sure.
Well, the NBA limits are bigger. So that setting for NBA kind of what worked for UFC, so we did it that way, but the limits were too big. I was taking like $2,000 early on my opening numbers that were really weak. So they would come in and fire away on these numbers. And before you know it, those numbers would move huge because you would just see one-sided action.
Right.
So you had no choice but to move those significantly. And that, that causes scalps and ARB opportunities on the other side as well. But they weren't doing that. They were more so trying to get me fired and saying, look how bad this line is. Look
trying to make it look like you're setting bad lines.
Exactly, 100%. Yeah. And at the beginning, it was like roll the dice, and they were crushing me. So I was getting beat, and it felt like, okay, you know what? I'm going to get fired. I was definitely concerned about, my job security for sure. There's no question. But I was the type of guy that I'm not going to give up. I'm going to I'm going to keep on working harder than everybody else for sure. I'm going to get this down. I just needed them to give me the wiggle room to do this, right?
Right.
Well, all this time though, I was hustling and I was on the forums and I was getting business for these sports books from the forums, from these places. People were finding out about these books. They were signing up. They were logging in, posting up.
So you're bringing in business. Even though things weren't going great, you were bringing in business.
Exactly, 100%. So, and I didn't know exactly how much impact that would make. I mean, obviously, it's a good thing when you're bringing in business, but when you're, losing on this end, still, well, it was enough balance where they were like, okay, at least he's bringing in business. So they gave me some wiggle room.
They also knew that, I'm sure that this is the Wild West, and Nick's probably working hard. They probably saw you cared.
Oh, I was working long hours.
Yeah, the fact you're in there grinding, trying to make it happen probably bought you a lot of rope. In addition to the business.
It did. Now, from the owners and the upper management, for sure, because it was like the bosses, though, at that time, like, so you would work. So I had direct meetings with a lot of ownership, but then I would work still with everybody else. And there was high-level managers there that weren't exactly on board with the UFC and MMA. So, and especially when their VIP clerks are getting taken up because there's professional NFL bettors coming in, NBA bettors coming in, and now all of a sudden you have UFC, which is a new product for them, and they all thought it was like fake WWE. They were like, "What? This stuff is all scripted. What do we even put lines out for this stuff?" I mean, they used to get pissed. I used to hear it was ridiculous how much. I'm telling you, I had to weather a heck of a storm, and not just from the bettors that were trying to pick me apart, but it was even internally. You know what I mean? The management internally. Again, the owners had my back, and that's how I survived that whole thing early on. But eventually. Not only did we bring in new business, I got the hang of the numbers a little bit more. My line started getting sharper, and we started making money. We broke even that second year. Like, we weren't getting crushed as much. Those people that were coming at me gave up because eventually it turned. They started losing.
Right.
So there was a lot of friction between them. It actually blew up in their face, so to speak. But again, I had to weather that storm, though, because at the beginning they were doing pretty good. So after all that, then the third year we became profitable, and we started. And then it was when I kind of got confidence and realized I'm pretty sharp at this stuff, right? So more opportunities came along the way, and I ended up, like I said, in Costa Rica, I was there for about a decade or so.
So I'd love to, tell me if I'm wrong, just from watching the show and watching you and Yanni for so long, Yanni seems like he's looking at data, whereas I've always felt like you were looking at a lot more film. And that's always
100% correct.
Okay. Yeah. Like Yanni's all about the takedown defense and percentages and, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, I just always got the impression like you're probably watching these fights, let's say who's a Gaethje and Pimlet is coming up. That's going to be a really interesting fight.
That is an interesting fight for sure.
So I kind of get the impression like you're probably going back and watching the fights for these two guys, and with your Taekwondo background and your martial arts background, you're looking for paths to victory and things like that, and that's kind of how you're setting the line. Like Gaethje should win this 6 out of 10 times, so you base the line off that. Does that sound accurate? Or?
That's very accurate. I mean, along the way, now analytics are widely available, so I do try to use as much as that because you got to constantly evolve. That's one thing. So I have like different formula that I came up with, and I've adapted and evolved, especially with more analytics and even UFC stats. Looking at the basic stats, pages like a UFC stats, for example, or MMA Oddsbreaker. I'm going to, kind of plug one of my sites as well, but MMAOddsbreaker.com has a nice stats page as well. So if you look at that, it gives you some real-time analytics. And with that real-time analytics, if it makes sense and adds up to what you're watching on film, because you do have to go, I go back and rewind certain scenarios during the fight. You have to go back and look at, how this guy reacted to this and then kind of compare it to who he's fighting. Can this guy bring these kind of problems? So it is one of those, it's old fashioned, but you got to go back and dissect film. And that's what I feel like is still to this day, I think that's the sharpest way to bet on fights is actually, again, you could look at the analytics and it could tell you a story for sure. But the problem is, if you look at a lot of the stats and numbers at the end of the fight, and look who wins a fight, sometimes it's not even close. Like you could see somebody did way more damage and it was clearly like this person won the fight. But if you look at the stats,
this guy landed more punches.
Yeah, and
but
it feels
didn't
like
have the power.
Exactly. So the visual was different, and the visual actually won this other guy the fight. But then you're looking at the analytics, and it seems like it's off the charts for the other guy.
Right.
So those stats have not quite caught up to UFC or MMA as like the NFL or NBA, something like that. Those analytics are definitely further ahead of the game. But again, it can sometimes tell you the story, especially if you know what type of style you're looking for.
Well, it sounds to me like it's part of your formula. It's part of the pie, so to speak. It's not a pie is not all sugar. It's not all flour. It's not all apples. But it's part of the puzzle.
Yes. Yeah. 100%.
And so, lost my train of thought. I was going to say something. Any case, well, it'll come back around. The so when you're looking at fights, you're looking at not only the film. I know what I wanted to say. How important is fight IQ to you when you're one of the things I want to preface this. Like obviously getting around fighters a lot with the company now, and I talk to fighters, and surprisingly to me, a lot of the fighters aren't really watching a lot of MMA, which I love listening to like Dom Cruz and talking about fight IQ or these guys. Like I talk about stamping the round. Like I can't tell you how many, and maybe I'm sensitive to it as a sports bettor. It's like a super close round in the last 15 seconds, and like neither of them do anything. And it's like if they just would have flurried at the end and maybe caught something like that would have won you the round. It's baffling to me as the guy sitting on the couch, drinking wine and eating pizza or something. Of course, I'm not the athlete and I'm not the high level and all that. It just seems like there's a lack of fight IQ so often that I feel like if I was a fighter, I feel like I'd be like Dominic Cruz. I'd be like watching it, really want to learn all that stuff.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm sorry, went long on that. But when I look at fighters, I think about fight IQ quite a bit. Like this guy just knows how to edge out the close rounds.
Matters so much.
Especially in a lighter weight or a female fight where you're maybe more likely to go to a decision.
Yep.
So is that something you think about pretty heavily?
It is.
Okay.
And it's pretty obvious. Some fighters have just bad fight IQs. When you're looking at the matchup right away, you're like, oh man, like, this guy for sure doesn't have the best. And it's frustrating because even their camps, they're telling them, you know what I mean? They're like guiding them. They're trying to guide them in the right direction. And they still do these brain lapses. And it's just, fight IQ, like you said, you know how many fights if they do flurry. Now, I think a lot of that is exhaustion, a little bit, to be honest with you.
Sure.
At that point of the, of the fight where they're like, whatever happens. I just want to get through this fight.
Yeah.
That's one thing. The mental aspect of things for these fighters is tremendous. I have so much respect for them because I don't even know how they go through these mental demons that they go through. That's why sometimes you see these fighters not make it out.
Sure.
it's a lot of stuff going on in there, in their heads.
Yeah.
So I give them a lot of respect. Even that fighter that, unfortunately, if that, like Macy Barber, for example, she bounced back recently. I'm glad she did. She's a tremendous fighter. But a lot of people gave her some heat for, her not making it out against, oh my goodness.
It's Blanchfield.
Yes, against Blanchfield. So, but again, we don't know exactly what went on. People can speculate all of this. So, yes, the mental attributes, even for that, it goes into it so much. So I look at the fighter and I do pick their brain a little bit and see what kind of intelligence this fighter has because it matters. If they have bad IQ, then they're going to give themselves in bad spots during the fight too. So the trust factor definitely goes down. And you know what? More times than not, a lot of these fighters have terrible IQs.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. It's like, it's frustrating.
Well, to me, if I'm trying to be a champion of the world, I want every edge I can get. And I'm going to watch as much MMA as I can because, you hear so many nuggets from somebody like Dom Cruz. I keep bringing up Dominic Cruz because he's so articulate and he loves to tell you this is what needs to happen and this is what he should have done. And obviously UFC has a bunch of great announcers, honestly, with Rogan and Cormier and stuff. But that's just something it's hard for me to comprehend. I know it's your job, but I don't know. I think I would be eating it up if I was a trying to do this professionally, I'd be all over it.
Yeah, or a fighter has an opportunity to get a takedown or lay on top of somebody to finish the round and probably edge them out the fight, and they stand up and make it like they get out of their own comfort. It's stupidity sometimes. You're like, man, all you got to do is just lay on that person for maybe 10 more seconds. You would have won the fight. Instead, you let him up and you just got flurried on and you lost the fight. Like you just little stuff like that. But again, you kind of chalk it up, and next time you kind of store that when you're watching. Say, okay, can I trust this guy in this area? Whatever the case is. Sure. And again, matchups are everything. So it's how they match up. And that's the truth. Just like, I guess, any sport, right? I mean, how the offensive line versus the defensive line in the NFL match up, that's crucial in a game for sure.
Well, I think when you're looking at it that level, I mean, if you're a sharp, you're probably analyzing all kinds of stuff like that. Curious, what's obviously doing this, you're picking fighters and things like that. You're walking around the UFC. I know you run into a lot of these guys. How often does that come up to where like, hey, Nick, you're not picking me? Like, what's up with that?
Not as often as you think. I mean, it happens from time to time, but not as often as you think. Because these guys are I think they understand, like, he's doing his job. Hopefully, most of them are. But there are some fighters that, at times they get a little bit heated. But more so, obviously, like I bumped into Adesanya after he won the title when he beat Robert Whittaker, and he was just eating at the Apex, in the PI area of where they have the facility, where a big, cafeteria area or whatever for the fighters. And I thanked him. I was like, man, you just cashed me, you won me some serious money. Because, again, that was before people realized, we're hip on Adesanya, so to speak. So it's cool because then they appreciate it. They want to make you guys money. It's frustrating when the fans out there, like, they might lose a fight. They try their best to lose in the fight, and fans are like, oh, you cost me this money. And because I've seen that too. That's frustrating.
Yeah. And you know what? If you lost money on the fighter, don't say anything. I mean, that's just ghetto. I mean, you're going to win and lose. I mean, that's part of sports betting. Hell, if you're winning more than 50% of your bets, you're actually doing pretty well.
Ahead of the curve, 100%. Yep.
So you're going to win. You're going to lose half your bets anyway. But is there a particular story you'd like to share with all that, or you want to stick with the Adesanya positive story?
I don't even know if Rockhold remembers, because we've seen each other since a few times. But like, I'll tell you a story about Luke Rockhold way back in the day. So
some juicy stuff here.
He was fighting Jacare the first time originally for the Strikeforce title, and he was kind of an unknown. Again, you had to be a diehard. You really had to research to know about Luke Rockhold at that time. So he's fighting Jacare for the Strikeforce title. And when I was setting the line and I was researching everything that I did, I was like, holy cow, this guy could beat Jacare. The way he matches up with him, this guy's good. He was a great striker. He had an amazing jiu-jitsu game with wrestling to go along with it. An unorthodox striking style. The problem is, at that point, at that time, I believe he had a little glaring loss on his record by knockout, I believe, early in his career, something like that. Again, don't quote me exactly, but there was something there that was a stain, sort of speak. And then Jacare at that time was just an all-time. Everybody wanted to see him, head to the UFC. He's phenomenal. I mean, one of the best grapplers ever in the sport. And on top of it, he could strike, and he had power on the feet as well. So.
And he had a cool name.
Yes. 100%. He was marketable. Yeah. So he was just, and I liked him. He was one of my favorite fighters, Jacare Souza was at that time as well. So looking at this and setting a line, I sent it out to the sports books with Jacare. He was over minus 300. He was like 350-ish, I want to say, off the top of my head. Again, it's been a while.
Yeah.
And I set it out there, and then again, the forums and all this stuff. After it got out that Rockhold was a big dog, he got on like a social media platform. Again, I can't remember if it was Twitter, to be honest with you, or if it was, I don't think it was Twitter. I think it was one of the forums, and he started bashing me. I think it was the Underground Forum, somewhere like that, or ShareDog possibly. And he started bashing me, saying, well, not bashing me direct, because he didn't really know who I was, but the odds makers are terrible. They don't know what they're doing. I can't believe I'm this big of a dog. I'm going to beat this guy, all this stuff. Well, little did he know, I thought so too. I really did. I'm setting the line based on, a lot of times, what the public is going to do. So if I open this thing a pick'em, because it should have been closer to a pick'em for sure, there's no doubt about it, because it was a coin flip type of fight. That's why there was extreme value.
Everybody would load it up on Jacare.
And then he wins a close fight. I'm toast.
You get mauled.
Yeah, exactly.
Then you're not doing your job.
Exactly. Risk management's a huge part of this.
Yeah.
So I knew that no matter what, probably where I set the line, they would probably hit Jacare. So I made it at a point where they could still hit him, but it was safe for the sportsbooks as well, because hopefully somebody sharp would come in, and realize that.
Kind of like Merab in the last fight. I mean, 4-1 underdog against Peter Yan, or favorite,
correct,
over Peter Yan, which, as much as you love Merab, like, that's a big line against a killer. I mean,
a quality fighter like Yan, of course.
I stayed away from that one personally. But,
I did too as well. But I mean, looking back now, I mean, Yan, of course, he's a tremendous talent. That's not even a bad loss for Merab. I mean, no,
I mean, plus I've got to meet Merab now, and it's like, do you find it's once you develop a friendship with someone, like, I don't know that I could bet against him now. I just don't want to put that
Yeah,
energy
no,
out there.
it is like that a little bit. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. You don't want to like, and a lot of times, you know, sometimes I hate to say it, but you know, you think, oh, I don't want to jinx this guy either, or whatever. You know what I mean? Because it's one of those things where you're betting with your heart.
Yeah.
It turns into a jinx sometimes.
Yeah.
So I want to finish that Rockhold story.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No worries.
Yeah.
Because it was one of those moments in time where, so he was definitely heated, and I DM'd him in the back. I think it was on the front of the forum or whatever, and I added a private messaging, whatever, in the back end, and I was like, hey man, I was like, don't get so heated, whatever the case is. We actually want you. Who do you think everybody's going to bet? They're going to bet the favorite.
Right.
It'd be great. If you pull off the upset victory, you're probably, you know, the books are going to love you for it, whatever the case is. He's like, I'm telling you. And I knew, I personally, again, I set lines, right? Once they're set, the sports books move those lines. If they over move them, I'm allowed to bet. I know that sounds crazy, but it's true because they want resistance. And who cares if it's my money, your money, whatever the case is, especially if it's a genuine line set, which I always did my best to set a real line. I'm not going to steer the sports books wrong. I mean, you have pride in your work.
Sure.
So I set the line. It got moved. People came in on Jacare. So he was complaining about the line that I set, and it got worse. It only got worse. So people were betting Jacare. I went in. Even before I had this conversation with Rockhold, the line was already steaming up. He didn't even know it was already steaming. So the public was betting it up. I went in and bet the other side with Rockhold. So I had a ticket in my hand already on Luke Rockhold, and he's bashing me for not knowing how good he is or whatever. He doesn't know that, though. He didn't know, you know, that I knew what was going on.
And realistically, you still could have set the line even worse for him because the line moved
It did.
in spite of that high
Yeah.
favorite.
100%. So he ended up, it was a great fight. It was close. He ended up winning the fight. And since then, again, I don't even know if he recalls this conversation because it's been so long ago.
Sure.
But then we kind of established a nice little bond together because, you know, he made me a ton of money. He made the books that, you know, money that I was consulting for as well, and he won the title. So it was like it was a beautiful thing, and I was so happy for him because he deserved it. He really did. He fought his butt off. He was underrated, and then that's when people started taking notice. Well, like, oh my God, Luke Rockhold's really good. He beat Jacare, and then look at the career he ended up having after that. I mean, the guy's phenomenal. So that's just kind of one story that I recall that really sticks out to me because I mean, fighters sometimes when they see themselves get put as an underdog, especially as a dog, they're like, man, that's disrespect. But again, they don't realize. I think a lot of underdogs can win. I mean, I'm picking. If you look at the show, I pick underdogs quite a bit.
You pick more underdogs than favorites, generally speaking.
I probably do. And again, it's just the way the card matches up. And again, you're looking for value. And that doesn't make it easy, right? Because those dogs are going to lose quite a bit when you're picking those. But again, you're trying to find value. You're not just picking fights, you're betting fights. And it's two different things completely.
Right.
I know I won a pick contest this year. And I had a pretty good year betting as well overall. For UFC this year, I won a pick contest. But again, the picking contest percentage is way higher than my bet percentage because, again, you're picking, not betting. There's two different things.
Right.
Completely.
So if you don't mind explaining for the average person, so when you're trying to get line value, how are you looking and determining that?
Well, for me, I mean, I set my own prices. So I know a range that the line should kind of be in. And once it just goes above and beyond that range. So say I have a fighter set at minus 250. And before you know it, I mean, the comeback is around plus 250. I mean, it's obvious value on me. You know what I mean? For me, because those lines do float. So when I see somebody that's getting disrespected and everybody's going in one way, and then that's like a flag that my line was way down here, now it's up here, automatically it becomes a bet. Or now these days, there's so many people that are out there trying to come out the early number just because, again, it's marketing. These sports books want to come out with an early line.
Action.
Yeah, get their, early lines. And the early lines are not the sharpest sometimes, so people take advantage of those, come in, even if it's $250 limits, $500 limits, whatever the case is. A lot of these guys are getting great line value. They are. If they come in, if you see what bet they took early on compared to the closing line, it's pretty good line value overall. Yeah. So when this starts happening, I'm looking at the line. A lot of times I could just log into, the page. I'm like, oh my God, this is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. It's pretty easy to see that there's some automatic value. But in a lot of fights, you still have to do the work, and you know what I mean? You have your line set, and then you see the line that's a little bit different. And it's up to my gut feeling as well, too. Obviously, you have kind of an area where it's an automatic bet or whatever, but it also kind of goes with it. Because I stay away from some of those. Like Jan, obviously, he was kind of like you were talking about Jan and Merab. As that big of a dog with a quality fighter like Jan, there's some value there. But I backed away from that because I was like, you know what? I know there's value there, but I still think Merab's going to win.
Such a machine, yeah.
And
literally,
he's burned me so many times because I'm like, all right, Merab is good, but this is going to be a challenge for him. Then he makes it look easy.
Yeah.
So you get to that point where you second guess yourself. And I do that still, you second guess what you have on paper. You're like, okay, I'll just stay away. It's better. And then you're like, oh my gosh, I passed up a winner, whatever the case is. I knew that it was going to be more competitive than everybody thought it was.
I believed with all my heart Jan was going to come in and give it his absolute best, like come in hardcore. And obviously 4 fights in a year is tough for anybody.
Yes.
1 fight in a year would be tough for me,
Oh, man. So, like I said, these guys are warriors. I don't know how they do it.
So it's certainly, obviously, if there's a good loss, I mean, Merab still fought his ass off for 4 fights in a year, but that's tough, man. That's anyway, not to sit here and talk about Rob the whole time, but it's, or Merab. But let me ask you this, in terms of, obviously you're a married guy.
Mm-hmm.
How do you manage gambling and the marriage now? Because you're
It's
obviously still managing a bankroll and gambling and things like that. Is that something like you're sharing P&Ls or is it just we don't talk about that because you've been doing it for so long?
It's hard not to talk about it because it impacts, I mean, especially with these judges, they're so frustrating.
Oh,
so it's hard not to react. I wish I was one of those guys that say, you know what, I could keep it totally separate, work and family, but it's not because, I wear my heart on my sleave sometimes. And
yelling at the TV and stuff.
Oh my God. Or I'll just be so frustrated. My wife knows. I'll just look and I was like, they just robbed me. And I hate to say it because, you hear that word, oh, I got robbed. And sometimes you're like, you didn't get robbed, whatever the case is.
But there's
some robberies for sure.
Jocelyn Edwards, I lost one a while back on Jocelyn Edwards. I was like, what in the hell just happened? Like, I knew that was money in the bank, but it does happen.
It does happen. And you're looking at the judges and you know what, to be honest with you, it's not funny business. Like, I think it's just ignorance. These judges are not betting. I truly believe this. They're not out there trying to manipulate or say, okay, hey, there's action here. This is where we want, we want this winner because of the betting markets. They're just
seeing it different. Right?
Yeah, they're seeing it different. I don't think most of them are not very good at their jobs. Let's face it. Like if this is the real world, a lot of them would have been probably axed in you know what I mean? If they're working in a company or whatever the case and doing is questionable decisions as they do. Because look, if you have 2 people lined up and they're on this side, 29-28, and then you got a 30-27 the other way, completely the other way, or whatever, it's like, what is going on? That's still one of the hardest aspects about betting, and it's one of the most frustrating aspects is just the judges' decisions are so wild. It's happened in boxing for all these years. We've seen it, and it happens in the UFC. People blame the UFC. That's remarkable to me. This is how naive people are. They're like, oh, the UFC set this up. They don't even pick the judges.
Right.
They're not picking those judges. You know what I mean? From state to state, it's the athletic commissions that pick those judges.
Right.
It's the athletic commissions got to buckle down, and they just got to get these guys better. I think there's a lot of different things. If a judge comes in and gives you an sort of a scorecard, you pull that judge for the rest of the night. I think the following week, you got to go through that fight with them and say, okay, tell me what you saw.
Right.
Why did you score it this way?
Yeah.
And if he can seriously, genuinely explain, I like this, okay, maybe he gets a pass. But if he can't back up his decision or whatever the case is, and it's obvious, then suspend that guy or do something with him. Don't let him judge again for a little while.
Well, I love how the NFL does. They're grading their refs all year long, and you're not going to be in the Super Bowl if you got a low scorecard and things like that, or the playoffs or what have you. So I'd love to see something like that. And the thing I always love about UFC, like especially Dana, he'll be the first one to criticize and like, that was fucking terrible.
Yep.
Like DC and Joe, they'll talk about like, man, that was awful. That was, So I love the fact that there's so much transparency. So, they're not gaslighting us like,
that was okay decision. Yeah, because of the, 100%. They give you they honestly give you their analysis. Like, okay, I thought that was wrong.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it is. How could you and I, Joe Rogan, whoever, realize who won the fight, but 2 out of the 3 judges there do not.
Right.
That's what frustrates you. And again, it's not funny business. These guys aren't out there betting. Do I know that personally? Obviously, no. There's no way to 100%, but I really believe that that's not the case. It's just, again, ignorance, and they're just not doing their job very well. So something's got to change with that. It's been like that for a long time, though. That's the other thing. I've been doing this for so long.
Yeah.
That people now it's coming to the forefront these last few years, like, oh, judging is so bad. It's been bad forever. It's really been bad for a long time.
It's, I wonder if, I was going to bring up the whole Bulgarian thing as well, the obviously some bad actors going on there. But I wonder if that maybe creates a little more urgency from the athletic commissions to where these things do go on. Anytime there's money and betting, there's always has been, they're always going to be fixing and things like that. As ignorant as it is, especially with some of these people that are already multimillionaires. But do you think something like that will maybe cause them to want to tighten this up over here because it's a bad look? Because now there's question marks possibly around, we know it's happened, so could there be something going on with the judges?
I don't think honestly, I don't think it'll like.
You just don't think it'll put any pressure
because
on
I
at
mean
all?
it's been so bad for so long. I don't think it's going to change much at all. I mean, it's something drastic is going to have to happen in that regard. I think the UFC will try to do their best to maybe help as much as they can. I don't know what the answer is to that, but it's obviously like the system is working as far as catching these red flags, and you know what I mean. The Bulgarian fight that you mentioned,
Sure.
it was so obvious what was going on. Everybody, you know what I mean, knew it. From early morning, I started catching wind about what was going on. And it all originated, honestly, from Florida, right? I don't know if you know the backstory of it.
I don't know a lot of the details about it.
So it was Hard Rock Sportsbook in Florida started getting some action. And they ended up having an alert because it was, okay, here's the thing. And again, there's a lot of dummies out there, including these guys that are trying to fix fights or whatever the case is. So
Like
you have
people
a
aren't
prop.
paying attention to this kind of stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, these people think that these sports books are getting loaded with all this money and all these bets. They're not. Sometimes you can have a prop that only gets two, but it can be DraftKings, for example, right? Again, I'm not looking at their client base right now, but there could be a prop I guarantee you that has 2 or 3 bets only, and they close it, they go off the board. Only 3 people bet that whole prop.
Right.
I know that's crazy because it sounds like it's draft, but that happens a lot in some of these books. There's only a couple people that bet the fight. Well, say you got the prop against Bulgarian, right? It was his opponent to win in round 1. It's specifically in round 1 by finish,
By
whatever,
sub,
right?
yeah.
Then so you get 1 bet in there, and then a couple minutes you get another bet in here.
And large
Then
bets.
a couple minutes, you're getting max bets, whatever the max bet. It could be only $250, whatever the case is, but that's a max bet. Right? Then you see another max bet come in on the same thing. Before you know it, you have 3. That's not normal. You're not going to get 3. I mean, there's people that like friends that share bets sometimes, but then next time you got 10 bets all of a sudden. You look an hour later, you have 10 bets on the same thing. There's something going on.
Especially for something so specific.
Yes.
Round 1.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the underdog's getting bet as well. Like they're just betting the plus money value on the dog as well. The line's dropping, and then the rumors start flying a little bit, and it always makes it worse. When people start speculating stuff, well, you see it's going on in real time a little bit as well. Because you know what? Some of the sharp bettors didn't catch wind until it was already halfway. Like the price, it was around minus 250-ish, 275-ish. And then when some of the sharp bettors started betting the dog, you're talking about the favorite was minus 170. So they were getting, so at the top end, the bettors were probably getting plus 240, plus 250, whatever the case is around there on the dog. When the sharps started realizing what was going on, the sharp syndicates out there, which are just betting everything and anything they can, it was plus 150-ish. So they even started betting it at 150. But so all that early action came in, dropped the line. Then they found out what was going on and dropped it all the way to almost a pick 'em, because then they're like, oh my God, this is what's going on. And again, they're sharp bettors. They're supposed to do their job and pick off lines, whatever they can. So that wasn't dirty. That part of it's not dirty. If you see what's going on.
They're just paying attention to what's going on.
The markets. And honestly, it's a responsibility of the sports books to pull it down, reduce the limits, do something. Like when you're seeing this come in, again, people that I consult with, whatever the case may be, I told, hey, this is what's supposedly happened. We don't know for sure. And that's the other thing. How could you 100% know what's going on? You could speculate that this is happening, but there's been times where, oh, this guy's hurt, you know, and then he ends up winning the fight anyway, whatever the case is. But in this case, obviously with Bulgarian being the main example we're using here, I mean, then it played out exactly like, you know what I mean, it was supposed to. And it was so weird. Obviously, that fight was dirty. There's no question about it. And, you know, and
I haven't heard multiple fighters like Aljo talking about how, you know, he gave up the sub so easy. So they're looking at the technique and all that stuff. Like he didn't even do anything right. Like this kid's way too skilled to just.
Yes. Undefeated until, again, he ran into the prospect killer in C-Rod, you know what I mean? And that's stylistic. I mean, and he's those wrestlers you throw at C-Rod, he's going to probably end up beating because of his takedown defense and the way he adapts and adjusts to those guys. So that was a good test for Bulgarian. That was his only flaw. Then to come back against an opponent that, I mean, don't get me wrong. His opponent was, I forget the gentleman's name as well. He's going to be a good fighter. So I'm not.
No, I actually like that kid.
Yes.
I tried to get a bet in on that one, and I couldn't find it, and I was frustrated. But that they had pulled it from Caesars at the time because I'm on my app, like, where the fuck is this fight at? You know, because I wanted to bet the underdog.
Yeah, he's a good fighter. That's the other bad thing about this. Now you have a guy that won a fight that's a talented fighter, and people are like, oh, he won that fight because you know what I mean, the guy gave up.
I'm going to be looking to bet him next time because people are going to not give him the credit he deserves.
Exactly.
He's a good fighter.
He is a good fighter. You know what I mean? And who knows? He could have legitly. Well, first of all, let's say this. He did legitimately win the fight.
Yeah, he did his job
100%. So in that case, yes. And I feel almost bad for him because now he's going to even, you know, second guess, not himself, but, you know, he's going to be like, wait, did this guy really give it to me that easy?
Yeah.
Whatever the case is,
But, yeah, that's an interesting story. And again, it's always going to happen. I mean, but it sounds like there's a lot of systems in place to catch it when it's going on. So, you know, I'd like to see the FBI involved in a little bit more fraud in Minnesota and things like that. But, they're obviously involved in looking at that stuff as well.
Mm-hmm. And even the UFC, I heard, again, I don't know for a fact, but the UFC went and before the Dolgarian fight started, talked to Dolgarian in the back, said, hey, this is what's supposedly going on. Is everything good? Dolgarian said, yeah, no, we're good. Everything's fine. And then goes out there and does it anyway. So it's a tough spot. And again, it had nothing to do with the UFC. I mean, it's just a stain on this sport when stuff like that happens. That's unfortunate. But we've seen baseball.
Basketball, realistically, right now.
I can't believe it's happening either in those sports.
Now, why would you? The one that I really couldn't believe is where he had the glasses. I guess he's playing poker with friends.
Oh my good, Chauncey Billups thing.
Chauncey Billups, like you're worth millions of dollars and you're screwing over your friends over a house game. Like, what are you doing, dude?
Those
that
guys
is awful.
Deserve to get. If that's the case and everything comes out like accurate, holy cow.
Obviously that's something I've heard. I don't know that for a fact, but if that's the case, like, wow, you are a real scumbag.
That's greediness.
Man.
Yeah,
you are.
These guys,
You're screwing your friends over. So I mean, this isn't some sports book, which I wouldn't want to screw over a sports book either. But anyway, so back to wrap up my thought on managing your relationship. So when you're saying it adds a little stress to the relationship, is it like when you're yelling at the TV, like, and you're upset and it's like, man, I just lost $400 on this bullshit decision, or the other thing about betting is it's not only I lost $400, but I didn't win.
Exactly.
So
it's a big swing.
Yeah, it's an $800 thing. So it's not the 400, it's an 800 swing.
Exactly.
So what are some tips you might give to people out there in a relationship?
I mean, try your best to hold that stuff. And no, again, it's just, what? My wife knows if it's a good night, I'm going to be in a better mood. And if it's a bad night, I'm not going to be it depends. You know what I mean? Look, again, I want to always win. Well, I don't. Yeah, you just want to win, and everything you do, you want to win. I'm competitive like that, so I hate freaking losing. But unfortunately, you're going to take losses. And in our business, you're going to take public losses.
Public losses. I was going to say that adds even more pressure.
It does add pressure because I don't want to lose for anybody. To be honest, I mean that is genuinely true.
Of course, yeah.
Like when I'm giving out a play on any of the social media, whatever outlets, our shows. I mean, it's a play that I bet myself and that I believe in, what I mean? And if it doesn't go well, you're only as good as your last bet. So if you win a couple bets, everybody thinks you're the king of the mountain. Oh my God, this guy's so awesome. If you lose a couple bets, you're the worst bettor in the history of bets. So yeah, we're definitely, out there in the public eye a little bit. I mean, our buddy Yanni, he's had, honestly, UFC on the line has been phenomenal for him. He's been so good.
Yeah.
He doesn't get enough credit that he deserves as far as.
It's a rough year until the very end.
Well, that was an amazing comeback he made. But those kind of years happen, what I mean? It's going to happen to everybody. So that was a remarkable comeback. But I know he had one tough year on Dana White Contender Series as well. He had a tough year. But outside of that, so people were bashing him that year. But then when you start winning, they don't say, and I'm bringing him up because he gets a little bit more than I do because he's, again, a little bit more popular and more of the public spotlight.
Yeah.
So, he'll get a little bit more of that slack. But it's not fair because, again, he goes out there, and on the shows, he's performing relatively well.
And he's done
time
awesome.
and time again.
I look at I've followed him longer, I guess, than I have you, just because he's been on the show and out there. But both you guys do really good, and I try to give you guys love online because I know, you have the degenerates they'll load up their bankroll because they got their ass kicked all weekend or all week, and they're trying to make it back on one bet, and that's a bad strategy.
Oh, it is a bad strategy.
And then they'll get mad at you if it doesn't happen, but they're not following the system. They're not being disciplined. They're not bankroll management, So at the end of the day, I actually, as a veteran gambler, I guess I could call myself, not that I don't gamble big stuff. My biggest bet this year is like maybe $1,000. Like I'm not.
That's good.
Well, I'm not a big gambler, so I want to be clear about that. But I actually, if I see you on a losing streak, you lost several in a row, or Yanni, I get excited because I know the win's coming. I will actually increase my bet size if you or Yanni are coming off of like multiple bad shows. Let's say, like, I know it's coming. You know what I mean? To me, that's just the veteran. Like, okay, I might triple or quadruple my normal bet because Nick has missed like 4 in a row. Like, I know that's not going to go on forever. So that's a time to get excited in my mind.
It is. People don't look at it that way, but no, that is accurate. I feel like, it is. When you're a sharp bettor, it's going to eventually, things will turn. Again, you have to kind of weather that storm, whatever the case may be, but it will turn. Yeah. So that's a good way to do it, honestly, because if you do see, I mean, again, it's just in fights or whatever the case may be, this guy's on a hot streak. he had a setback, whatever. Yeah, I mean, you're going to ride that hot wave or whatever, or you're going to know this guy's so hot that I got to take it easy because he's going to cool off. You could almost do it reverse too, because if you know he's been on fire, but it's hard when they're on fire. It's hard to kind of back away though too, is what.
Yeah.
Right?
But it's the same principle though.
Yeah.
And I do hate it when you and Yanni are on other sides, opposite sides. Like I just stay away from those,
Well, and it's frustrating. You know what? We never talk before, like, especially gambler's perspective. I mean, we do the UFC on the line. We do a conference call like on Monday usually. So we'll go through the Monday call and we put it out there. So the UFC's asking, okay, this fight, what do you guys think about this fight, whatever the case is. So we'll go back and forth. And so before we do a UFC on the line, I kind of know what, he likes, so he kind of knows what I like, but we don't copy each other's bets at all. And then the gambler's perspective, we really don't know until we're doing it. You know what I mean? Until we're doing the show. So I'll send in my email and then we start the show and Yanni will be like, oh man, I just saw you're on the opposite side of me on this. And I'm like, really? And we'll look like, damn it. Like, so I don't like to be on the opposite side of it. But again, it's genuine. I mean, and people might, I guess people misunderstand sometimes because I know it doesn't happen very often. But I know on one of the UFC on the lines, I think we were on different sides of something. They're like, of course, they're just giving out both sides of it. No, I like this side. He liked that. We're not trying to play games. We're trying to, again, genuinely give the consumer what we think.
Right.
And more times than not, it's going to be pretty sharp.
Yeah.
So that's what it is.
In general, it's been great long term.
It has been.
So, I mean, that's the thing is people are just trying to, anytime people are trying to get rich quick usually means you're going to lose money quick. I think that's just a good general principle. Even starting this company or something, I thought we'd get off to a quicker start. We're in our first 2 weeks. But again, it's a business. It's long term. You're not going to get rich overnight, generally speaking.
Now, you got something good with Triumph Cigars. I mean, I really believe you do have something special here. And the way you're incorporating the fighters, it's going to catch for sure. There's
All right, so I didn't mean to segue, but let's go ahead and get into your gift here.
Oh.
So essentially what we've done is, alcohol has influencers and The Rock has his own tequila. Aljo's got his tequila, Conor McGregor, obviously. I got you a little cutter here.
Nice.
Triumph Cigars cutter. I brought you 4 cigars. Do you smoke cigars by chance?
I do. I'm kind of a noob, meaning a rookie. I should say I'm a rookie novice level still when it comes to cigar smoking. But I do have some friends that are big time cigar smokers, and I've dabbled a little bit.
Well, I'll get you some more whenever you want to. So this is a Funkmaster, Aljamain Sterling.
Nice.
We got a Bloodline, Cub Swanson's agency. These are all out of the Dominican Republic. Killer Cub, that's obviously Hall of Famer there, awesome guy. And Clay Guida, another Hall of Famer. Now, this is a Nicaraguan cigar. That wrapper is aged 4 years. But brought you 4 cigars there just to try it in a little travel humidor. Boveda pack. Got to have the Boveda pack for the humidity. But thank you for coming on the show. That's a little gift there. But
I appreciate it. This is awesome.
While we're talking about cigars, I meant to put the cutter back in there too. But yeah, ultimately, when I think of the biggest G's in history, the Michael Jordans, the Muhammad Ali's, the Winston Churchill, the Ulysses S. Grant, like you think about the coolest people, Scarface, Frank Sinatra, they're all smoking cigars. Jalen Hurts wins the Super Bowl. He's got that really awesome photo, him in the Lombardi Trophy smoking a cigar. You find out you're having a kid, you smoke a cigar. So when I think about the baddest people in the history of the planet, I mean, UFC fighters are up there. As awesome as Muhammad Ali was, pretty much every fighter in his weight class is going to end the fight within a minute, probably choke him out, and unless he catches him. What would your odds be on that, by the way?
Oh man, Muhammad Ali, one of the greats. Yeah. No,
let's say Muhammad Ali versus I don't know. This is spontaneous here. Versus I don't know. Let's say a Merab, even though Mahab's
different divisions.
Different.
We saw that
class.
with Randy Couture, kind of James Toney.
Yeah, we totally saw it. Yeah, he just took him down and just beat him up.
That's what would happen.
That's what I would think.
Yeah. So you have to
95% of the time that would happen.
Yeah. Well, against somebody like Merab with that talent, yeah. I mean, it would be a high chalky line. But the tricky part about that would be so much action would come in on Ali because people would think, oh my God, he's one of the greatest. They wouldn't even consider the stylistic. They would just bet the name and the ability. Because I mean, obviously, one of the greats. So if they see a big plus money number, it's a lottery ticket. Oh, put money. So the books would actually need the favorite, the chalky favorite. There's no doubt about it. But it would be a chalk.
Yeah. So, but it's interesting. So that's kind of obviously getting to know O'Day Osborne and came up with the idea. And we've got about 20 fighters right now. We've got 14 actual cigars on the market right now. Drew Dobers of the world. We got some really good people. But incredibly nice people. I mean, it's been really surreal getting to know fighters, and then they're also nice. You know, the craziest killers on the planet are just some of the nicest as well.
They are. I mean,
Yeah.
the ones that I, had the privilege to meet as well. Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
You know, it's great talking to them. It's fun talking the sport. But other than that, outside of it, they're just good human beings.
Yeah.
Which again, you would think a lot of these guys are not the case. They're going to be tough guys, egocentric, but they're not. I mean, they're down to earth people. You would never. A lot of times, you would never think like walking with Marab next to Marab or whatever the case is. You look over at him, you wouldn't think that guy would destroy me in a few seconds. Whatever,
Right.
You know what I mean? Oh my gosh, it's funny because
It's wild. Yeah. It's kind of humbling being around all these guys all the time. Like everybody I'm hanging around with can kick my ass now. You know what I mean? Like literally everybody. It was probably, I probably had a chance against half of the people before, but you know, now it's, I don't have any chance. Just kind of wrapping up, I've got some fun stuff I want to ask you as well, but just if someone's, what do you think are the few biggest keys to sports betting? Let's say that someone actually wants to try to be in that 1%. Is there kind of a quick 5-minute roadmap? Obviously, you don't have all the details, and there's context and nuance and judgment and all this kind of stuff that comes into play. If you had to give some overarching principles, what would they be?
I mean, research. You got to put the work in. And now, even with like sports betting in general, with the NFL, there's ESPN analytics, whatever the case is. So there's a lot of information available. If you do the research, and if you're I think very disciplined with your bankroll management, because that is the thing. We all overdo the bankroll management. That is, I mean, people are the bettors that are listening to the show are gonna be like, oh man, everybody says bankroll management.
But that's to me the number one thing, right?
It is. It really is, because you can survive those bad times if you stick to your bankroll management, more so than just blowing your load, so to speak, on one big play that you think is a sure lock.
Right.
Even like following sharps. And I'm saying following sharps because that's a real thing as well. Like a lot of the industry, a lot of bettors out there, they have different screens. So there's different software providers, there's different line aggregate services and whatnot that you could see in real time the lines moving. And there's certain sports books that are sharper than others. So if you kind of can figure out which books are sharper than the kind of more recreational books. I mean, that's telling as well sometimes. So I would put in the research if you can. There's a place called Don Best, but again, they charge you I think maybe $500 a month for their service, which isn't bad. Depends on again what your bankroll is.
It depends on what you're betting, right?
Yeah. So, but 500 could be a little steep too.
That's
maybe
$6,000 a year. Yeah.
There's also they changed the name, but it was Spank Odds. Now I think it's
Spank Odds.
Spank Odds.
Okay.
Spanky, the guy, gentleman behind Spank Odds, again, he changed the name recently as well.
Okay.
But behind the Spank Odds is one of the best bettors in the world. One of the biggest.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. So this guy's phenomenal. So he's got a screen basically set up. Like I know you guys have been to probably like Best Fight Odds or FightOdds.io.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's something like that, but on steroids for sports bettors. It's like
Heavy data.
yes.
This is
big
where
time.
Yanni's and you guys are getting a lot of your deep
Yes,
insights.
yeah. And again,
Yeah.
you could just see real time markets moving from all over the world. You could see where these sports books are going. And again, the sharper books are going to be ahead of the curve because they're getting hit. A lot of the sharper books they don't mind taking sharp action. Well, even those guys, they get bothered from time to time, but they'll absorb the sharp action because they let that sharp action kind of mold the decision they're going to make. So if you have a line center, for example, and then all of a sudden, so if I'm on one side of things, like I like this guy in a fight, and then all of a sudden 2 or 3 sharps that are verified sharps come in on that side as well, and they agree, then you can put your foot down a little bit stronger in a case like that.
Move the odds to where you start getting action on the other side open.
So you almost want those sharp bettors to come in, because then if you can control it, then you will end up getting more money on the other side, and then hopefully you'll be profitable by following that sort of pattern. Now, not everybody can do that.
Right.
There's books that shy away right away from it. So for me, I would kind of look into even the screens like FightOdds.io. If you want to use a free one, for example, you go to FightOdds.io for the MMA UFC betting, and you can look at some of the sharper books. You're going to probably be able to tell which ones are sharper. Like out there's the Pinnacles of this world, Pinnacle Sports. It's an offshore book. A lot of these books that I'm talking about right now are probably not going to be widely available because some of them are just international only. Some books you got a VPN in. There's a lot of tricks to the trade or whatnot. But Pinnacle's a sharp one. There's a book out there called Paradise Wagers, very sharp. Bet 105 is another one. So there's a lot of offshore places that are on FightOdds.io that you can actually see. And then if they're sticking out glaringly, you can tell. And then the DraftKings of the world are going to be behind those guys. The FanDuels of the world are going to be behind these guys a little bit. So that's when if you're able to access those accounts and you see, like, for example, Pinnacle Sports, man, they're super high on this favorite. DraftKings is still low on this. I mean, that could be something, just line shopping and seeing where, the sharper books are ahead of the curve. Maybe you take a little dabble there with your bankroll management. That could be some way to start off a little bit sooner to get sharper educated as far as betting goes. But again, you have to weather that storm because that line, so Pinnacle might be right this time. They might be wrong the next 3.
Right.
You're like, oh, so you got to be able to absorb that and weather the storm 100% before you do it.
What would you say? Let's say the top 50% of that 1%. What do you think their win percentages would be? Obviously, you don't have the data, but like 60%, 55%, like the best in the world. What are they running over the course of 5 years, let's say?
Between 55 to 60%. Now, I think in UFC, it's closer to 60. It's closer. Okay. So you could do that. Again, it's a beatable sport. That's why if you're going to get into betting.
for that because it's one guy.
Yes. And I think if you're going to start betting, if like you don't know what sport, UFC is a good one to come into right away because again, the lines are a little bit softer still. And I'm an odds maker and I'm telling you that because there's so much public that goes into these lines, public bettors. And there's a lot of books out there that they're not doing their research. They're just copying and pasting other people's lines as well. And they're far behind as far as like, okay, the whole market shifted and has moved up here and they're stale. They're staying behind you. Now, you got to be careful though, because if you are taking advantage of those slow moving books, they're eventually going to chop you. That's the bad part. They'll cut you down and they'll limit your bets. But I feel like, that's another aspect of things that you want to kind of do a little bit too, is, kind of point out those books and those places that are kind of moving a little bit slower and kind of take advantage of that while you can. You'll get chopped. You might need to have your wife get an account after that to start over again, or a friend or whatever the case may be. But there's been times that I've recycled 10 accounts from one place in particular, a European book. I won't say the name because I don't want them to.
Right.
But I mean, so they'll let you win $10,000. Like around 10, that's kind of their, they'll let you win until you get to about 10 grand, then they'll chop you. So once you get to that spot, you got to get a new one. So you have to have a friend get you a new account and stuff like that as well. So it's a game you play for sure.
Random question I meant to ask earlier, because obviously you do a lot of fight study and things like that. I'm real big on energy. Like, I love watching the UFC embedded stuff. I'm one of the guys, I'm watching all that stuff. And there's sometimes like, I'm not going to say his name because he's I really like this fighter. But I remember him saying something in the embedded, and I was like, ooh, I didn't want to hear that. And he ended up losing. And it's like there are, to me, little tells, I guess. Like, we're both poker players, so I did make it to a final WSOP one time. Not the main event, but that was my biggest.
That's amazing. That's
it was 3,300 people, so it was a circuit event. But anyway, I do believe you get an energy from the person walking out, or like watching the embedded stuff. Do you look at any of that stuff, or? I'm not I guess a stickler to watching every embedded, but I do. I mean, because you can kind of pick up little things, little tells, like you said, even from the weigh-ins. You can pick up little tail for sure. You got to watch a lot. I love watching the weigh-ins and the face-offs. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because you could, but sometimes we look too much into that stuff, and it can sway you in the wrong direction. So you got to be careful, because someone like Rob, for example, I know we're getting back to, but I mean, he looks drained as heck, on weigh-in days a lot of times, but he's able to show up more times than not, and he looks great on fight day. So you're like, oh man, he's going to be drained. Just those scenarios. So I think sometimes we look at those a little bit too much. But for me, I don't look at every embedded, but I guess I should probably be a little bit more disciplined watching all those embeddeds. Now, you can't let it influence you in a different way, though, in a bad way either, though, because there's a lot of influences that kind of, I think, take part when it comes to you're watching embedded. You kind of almost become a fanboy or whatever the case is. You kind of fall in love with the storyline.
Sure. Yeah.
So I think you got to kind of be careful with that stuff. Yes.
Yeah. So I guess maybe the overall countenance of the fighter, I definitely like paying attention to that.
Social medias too, like Instagrams. I know a lot of my friends more so than I, but that's another thing. You come across some social media, see what they're doing in their personal life sometimes if you can. There's some crazy guys out there that do some wild stuff. And you're like,
then again, you got the protesters of the world that are smoking and doing all kinds of stuff. Or John Jones. I mean, he's he didn't seem to change a whole lot for anything, and just kept winning. Although I do believe, I love John Jones, but I do believe Dom Reyes beat him.
I do too. I had a big bet on Reyes. I was so frustrated.
I think it was plus 340 if I remember correctly, but I thought Dom won that, and I did have a bet on it, 3 rounds to 2. But anyway,
I agree.
That's I also understand the point where when you're the champ, you got to decisively beat the champ to take the belt. I see that. Although I felt Dom won that fight.
I did too. I did too. And that was another one that people were calling me crazy before the fight. I went on social media. I was almost when I first landed in Vegas, not too long after I landed in Vegas, actually. So I went to the casino, went to Superbook Sports, and they had like plus, I think 380, 375. Oof. I videotaped me betting it. And people were like, oh, you're crazy. You guess John Jones? I was like, it's going to be a close fight, way closer than the odds indicate. Yeah. People were bashing me. And then after the fact, I thought he won it, but my money went out the window. That's a frustrating part. I mean, even that case right there, was it a great bet? Because I hear this all the time. A great bet is not one that loses. No, that's not true. I don't believe that firmly because, again, you made a great bet on Dominic Reyes. One more judge, like you know what I mean? You swap those judges out, you would have won that bet.
Even losing the fight, it should have been a pick 'em based on the fight.
Correct.
So if I got +3, that's how I look at it.
So I would take that bet all day. I would do it again. If you knew the fight was going to be that close. I know people won't understand that because the bet lost, but that was a great bet you made. Hats off.
Winding down here, do you have a favorite fighter that you love watching? Or let's say someone in the top 5 or 10?
For me, being a karate guy, I've always had a thing for Lyoto Machida. I know he's not competing in the UFC anymore, but he was one of my first, I was like, all right, this is going to be the guy that makes an impact for karate people out there. And he did.
He had a great story, man.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness.
Awesome.
And he was, even against John Jones, I was like, he went out there and won the first round. Then the second round, holy cow, John Jones proved that he's just.
Why is John Jones? Yeah.
Holy cow, that was remarkable. But him, I love Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Michael Venom Page these days, I love him as well because again, he's coming back from. Those guys are coming in kind of from my background, or why not? If you go back and look at some of Michael Venom Page's sport karate fights, they're so fun. You can see what I'm talking about. And for me, I like those guys so much because it's so hard to do what they're doing. I know coming from that background, I mean, you have to be elite of the elite to make it work in the octagon. Right. Are you kidding me? It's so hard with everything that comes into play. So I do have another level of respect for those karate guys, those stand-up fighters that end up working on their takedown defense and getting it to the point where they give wrestlers fits. Yeah, and that's awesome to see because it's so hard. It's easier for the wrestlers, I feel like. That's the best base. Let's not mistake anything. I mean, if you're going to start off with MMA, it was a no. And this was not me years ago. Oh, these strikers will beat all these wrestlers. No, I mean, you learn and you evolve with times. I'm like, holy cow, these grapplers, these wrestlers, they get you to the ground, you're in some serious trouble. Yeah. But watching these strikers evolve to defend that now these days, it's so awesome to watch. So that's what I like to see. When a guy is out of his realm a little bit because they're trying to take him down, but he ends up managing pretty well and ends up winning the fight because of his striking. That's phenomenal. So those are kind of guys I lean towards.
Yeah. And I mean, MVP with the way he can hit you from across the ring, he just darts in and slaps the shit out of you. He bounces out so exciting to watch those guys fight. Yep. Coming back to some regular stuff here, just winding down. Thank you for your time today, by the way.
No problem. Pleasure. I love talking. Obviously, you guys can tell I love talking about all this. I could talk all day about sports betting.
Two of us for sure. Favorite band. Who's someone maybe in your top 10 that you might be throwing on Spotify as you're getting out of here?
Oh, this is going to be crazy. Nobody's even going to believe some of this stuff. But I've always been an Eminem guy.
Okay.
Believe it or not. So with that said, I'm not even going to say Eminem right now. But I mean. So Joyner Lucas is in my, I don't even know if you're familiar with Joyner Lucas.
I think Aljo walks out to one of his songs.
Okay.
I love.
So yes. Yeah. So Joyner Lucas, again, I kind of stumbled across him from the the Eminem video they did a while back or whatnot. So I started listening to some of his stuff, music. But you would never, people look at me, they would think this guy doesn't listen to rap, whatever the case is, right? But yeah, no, I probably have more of a fonding for, rap music, but I like everything. I do like country music. I like rock and roll. So I can listen to a little bit of everything, classical music. But like right now, probably in my, when I go to the car or whatever, it's probably you turn it on. Joyner Lucas might be playing right now as we speak.
I feel our age group, and again, I'm just speaking for me. I mean, I'm 3 years older. It's not that big a deal. I feel our age group is so diverse when it comes to music. Like I grew up listening to Digital Underground and NWA and Eazy-E but I also grew up listening to Guns N' Roses and Cinderella and Van Halen and, classic rock. And then, so Bob Marley, like Zeppelin, I could listen to all of it all day long. And so I just think of people in our age group, we just grew up with so many different influences. And I think it's wonderful,
Well said. Yeah. I didn't think of it that way, but that's very true. 100%. I listened to all that stuff. NWA, Eazy, all that stuff. Yeah, it was.
I could go Al B. Sure, Belle Biv DeVoe. just that generation. It was just so, in
like
flux.
you said, it's funny because you said Guns N' Roses, Poison, all that. I used to listen to that as well.
Yeah.
So everything,
All the way to Michael Jackson, all the way to, just across the board.
Yes.
Didn't even matter. Last question, top 10 movie for you.
Ooh, I mean, when you said top 10 movie, right away, Bloodsport popped in my mind.
Okay.
Jean-Claude Van Damme, again, from a kid, like being, younger or whatever the case is. That's always been one for me. Heat is another one. Robert De Niro,
Great movie.
Al Pacino. I love
Great
Heat. That's
movie.
always kind of stuck in my head. I guess outside of that, right now, top of my head, those are kind of top of my list.
Well, Heat's probably top 25 for me. I mean, that was Val Kilmer, the movie, the storyline, the actors. Even though De Niro kind of irritates me now a little bit, just with the raging stuff. But just what a great cast, what a great movie, story, everything.
Yes.
But
Or Casino too, obviously. Casino. Again, I know it's Robert De Niro again, but it's just
same
Casino
realm,
was
though.
just it was.
But he just couldn't miss back then. I mean, there was all those great movies. But Nick, thank you for coming out tonight. And I know we went a little long here, but thank you. It's really been a pleasure sharing. And I hope you got as much out of this as I did. Anything you want to wrap up and say? Or
No, not at all. We're going to have to have you on our show, The Gambler's Perspective, soon. So look out for Brian on The Gambler's
that'll
Perspective.
Be fun.
We'll have you.
That'll be fun. Believe me, I'll do lots of film study. I got to make sure I have a good pick for that one. But you can find Nick on the Gambler's Perspective on UFC, on the UFC app is where I watch it. I stream it right to the TV. And UFC on the line. So best is ahead. Congratulations on the new contract.
Thank you, sir.
I think that was well earned.
Appreciate it.
And we'll see you next time. Maybe when you have one of your best years you ever, we can get you back out here on the podcast and you can gloat about it.
That'd be great. Looking
Awesome.
forward to it.
Well, thank you so much, Nick.
Thank you.
And thanks for joining us on another 5 Things podcast. We'll see you next time.